All right. Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict
Live.
Yeah, Ross is here. For those who've been asking, he was doing some research for our members for some presentations that we're gonna be doing. Anyway, good to be with you guys. It's Friday as always. Friday comes back so fast. I hope your holidays were very well. So, anyway, we got a lot to cover today. So we're gonna be talking about.
Shall we jump into headlines?
Yeah, why don't we? Let's do that first, then we'll start dealing with
So much is going on in the world. Sometimes it's hard to figure out which ones to select
because
because there's so much happening and it
Indeed.
isn't slowing down.
Indeed.
But maybe we could start with the U.S.-Russia meeting ended ahead of schedule.
Exactly. That meeting just took place this morning in Geneva, in Switzerland, between Lavrov and Foreign Minister Lavrov and Secretary of State Blinken. And he ended. It's supposed to last 2 hours. It was cut short, which tells you right there that this Ukraine saga. There's a lot of you're gonna hear a lot about talking about this, but some so-called foreign policy heavy hitters talking about it's nonsense. They are not saying the truth. They are not coming to say that the West is not willing to respond to Russia's security proposals. That is all the reason. And speaking of that, guess what? The Duma, the parliament in Russia, now they're going to agree on. They're going to agree on recognizing the independence of two entities in Ukraine. One of them is called, I just got it right here, it's called Donetsk, and the other one is called Lugansk, as those are areas in Ukraine as independent states.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. So the saga, just FYI, this saga of the Ukraine, it's dragging on because the West is now willing to come to resolution about it.
Iran, China, Russia military exercises, muscle flexing or strategic alliance.
Oh my gosh, that's an interesting one. Just FYI, for those who might be the first time you guys watching us here, let me just briefly tell you my background, what qualifies me to talk about this. So I am a geopolitical analyst. I am a former military. I was on the ground in the Middle East. So I kind of, in my academic background, this is exactly what I have spent a lot of years acquiring the experience. So when I speak from experience. So I am not just, assuming this or assuming that. So I know what I'm talking about. And the analysis we provide you is very, very to the point and to the best of my assessments. So why don't you, Ross, introduce your background here? So for those who have not seen
well, I have a PhD in psychology. And for several decades, I consulted inside corporations about executive selection, executive team building, and corporate culture development with a number of big name clients like Southwest Airlines and IBM and some others. And we bring this joint action together because we bring different focuses and different areas of expertise.
Exactly. So just to go back to this issue of the military exercises, which taking place today. And by the way, I think when I did the break-ins, I misspoke. I meant the Indian Ocean, north of the Indian Ocean, not the Atlantic Ocean, near of the Sea of Oman. So here is the importance. I'm going to put my analyst hat on and provide you this brief, very, very, very brief. This triangle, the golden triangle, if you will, between those three countries, because now it becomes clear that it is an alliance of necessity, not just convenience, but is of necessity. And what it has in it, the message that is sent into the West, is that all three countries, all three of them, because where the location of the training, and I got the exact location for it, it's the Gulf of Waters of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz. You got also Bab el-Mandeb, which is at the south of Yemen. You got also the Gulf of Aden, which is on the east side with access to the Indian Ocean there, and also the Malacca Strait in the Southeast Asia. What is the purpose of all this? Is to ensure the maritime security and navigations for all Iran, Russia, and China. That's why I say it's an alliance of necessity. So
Ready for this?
Yeah,
Tunisia cracks down on the press.
I know. We all, you know, you don't hear much the West talking about it and becoming down. So you're talking about the tension of some journalists.
Yeah.
Shame on them. They call themselves a democracy. You know, well, of course, I don't know if you know much about Tunisia's history with its old president or previous president, Ben Ali, who was embezzling all the money. And guess where he got? I got the word from some of my contacts. Which country gave him refuge? Nobody knew. It was Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
I mean, he died. He just died recently. So Saudi Arabia gave him a refuge in the Gulf. You know, the guy embezzled the money. So this new president is kind of cracking down. And this is why democracy will not work in the Arab world. They are not. There is no such thing. It won't work. So the reason we want to talk about this, Ross, is just to highlight the double standards of the West. Why aren't they talking about it? Same thing. What's going on in India when Facebook delayed the publication. If you guys check out my Twitter, you will see I posted something there about it. So they didn't disclose the information about the Hindus beating a Muslim with sticks by himself. So anyway, Tunisia, that's where the issues are.
You know, worldwide, we're seeing a repression of press.
Yeah.
And it's going on everywhere, even here.
Yeah. But the problem is, you know, they're cherry picking. They'll talk about this, but not about this. Well, if you are to be honest with everybody, then be honest and disclose all the information. You can't be cherry picking and selecting, well, we can only talk about this press in this country, but not this country. So that's to me what I call double standard.
Oh, that's being polite. Okay. Israel using spyware.
Yeah. Israeli, yes. The reason why we thought of this, because the judiciary in Israel is opening an investigation about the Pegasus. Pegasus is a spyware that the government was using. It's because the name of some 136 individuals came out last night.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had a chance to check this out, and so now the judiciary is thinking about, wait a minute, did you guys break the rule here? So you admire an entity like this stepping forward and said, no. Just because you are part of the government, you can do just whatever you want. So I found it very interesting because Pegasus, a lot of countries acquired it to start controlling their own population and spy on them.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah, shocking. You're right.
Wow.
You're right, Ross.
In a way, it's a crying shame. There's so many other really rich topics.
I know.
Yeah, but we have to do our own cherry picking as to what we think people would really want to hear most.
Yeah. And also because, you know, when we do, guys, this with you, we provide it very brief analysis. As I said, you all know why. That's why if you truly want to have some in-depth, go check out my videos on locals. This is where I truly provide an in-depth analysis because I can speak freely over there. Just check it out, guys, because some of the topics we do with you here, I do them personally on locals, but I do them in more depth. And I disclose whatever information I have or I know because there's no censorship there. So check it out over there, guys, when you got a chance to do it.
What do you think? Should we move to the main topic of the day?
Let's do it, Ross.
Iran and Saudi Arabia are opening up diplomatic relations yet again.
That is correct. You know, after a breakup of 6 years. So you may ask yourself from the bat, why is this important? Why do I need to know about this? And why did we even decide that we're going to address this topic? Well, there are a lot of moving parts to why you need to know this one. So for starter, geopolitics is at the helm of it. You know, a lot of people do not understand that geopolitical issues can trickle down into the average citizen, whatever. Saudi Arabia and Iran and any other, they're not immune from that.
Right.
So, and we wanted to highlight this because of the changing dynamics that's taking place. Once again, I speak from a background of knowledge that I acquired over the years regarding these two countries. I wrote a book about Iran and I wrote a book about Saudi Arabia. So I kind of conducted the research over the years and I've been on the ground over there in the Middle East. So, and I also understand the culture and I speak the language. So I know what I'm talking about. Trust me on this, guys. So here's the thing. Saudi Arabia And Iran all of a sudden decided to do this, not because they want to. It's because Saudi Arabia felt, oh my gosh, if we don't hop on this train, we're going to be left behind.
And they probably are right.
Yeah. It's because Saudi Arabia is already seeing the partnership that exists between Iran and China, Iran and Russia. And also, they are realizing, U.S. leadership is declining in the Middle East. It has been declining. It has been waning for over a decade, almost 15 years ago.
And it has to be at the bottom right now.
Oh yeah, no, nobody now. Now you start seeing more and more countries are pulling away. I'm working, just FYI, guys. I'm working on one particular topic. It has to do with the Polish president. His statements before he travels to China for the Olympics.
Oh,
Yeah, it's another message for the West. Anyway, to go back to the Saudi Arabia, why the rapprochement? Once again, it's because Saudi Arabia is coming to realize that it's going to be left behind, and they don't want to miss that train. Policymakers inside Saudi Arabia, or foreign policy establishment, or the monarchy, whatever you want to call it, they are realizing that the wealth has already shifted from the west to the east, which means what? In a simple language, the next market, global market, it's not going to be in the US. It's not going to be in Europe. It's going to be
in China.
In China.
In China. And Southeast Asia.
Exactly, because that's where Southeast Asia, I'm glad you mentioned that one. When you think about ASEAN,
yeah,
their economy soon will surpass that of Europe, of the EU rather. So Saudis wants to do this. And to understand this specifically, I'm going to give you guys, share an example with you. So that put things in perspective for you. A couple of years ago, the United States asked Saudi Arabia to upgrade and renovate the oil refineries in Houston.
We know where that went.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia said no. But guess what Saudi Arabia did a year later or so? They went ahead and built brand new refineries in China worth about $10 billion. Why is that important? I mean, it's a sovereign state. They're a sovereign country. They can do whatever they want. What is the hidden message into this? And this is where the analysis comes in. It's because Saudis want the Americans to stay dependent on the oil from Saudi Arabia. That is the reason why they didn't want to renovate the oil from here. And mind you, just about 3 months ago, no, wait a minute. What are we? January, right?
Yeah.
About only a month and a half ago, U.S. president asked Saudis to increase production of oil.
And we know the answer.
Yeah, they didn't respond. As a matter of fact, the U.S. asked 3 times. I almost feel like the Saudis gave the middle finger to America, which what it was basically, because they didn't respond to that.
Which is astonishing in the fact that they just didn't respond at all.
Exactly.
I mean, it's more than a slight signal.
Yeah. And here is the thing that you guys need to know also, is that Iran and Saudi Arabia, of course, both of them are members of the OPEC, the oil producing exporting countries. Why is that important? It's because those two countries produce the largest share of the OPEC production, which means what? They can, to a degree, influence prices right or left, to a degree.
Right.
So, but here is the thing. Saudis, realizing that Iran, because of the sanctions of the U.S., they're only selling oil to China, providing also to Russia. But in return, they're not being paid in US dollar because the sanctions.
It's the yuan or the digital currency.
Yeah, but they're not even getting money. What they're getting is technology instead. The purchase of weapons from Russians, the technology with the exchange of or the support of the Chinese technology to Iran. Remember when we talked about the $400 billion deal?
Right.
So those are the dynamics that you guys need to understand as to what prompted Saudi Arabia to embark on this. You know what? Let's reestablish ties with Iran. That's one. There is another dimension to it, which in the Middle East, Iran plays a major role in Middle East politics. Because here is the fact that the West will never disclose. politics in the Middle East will have to go through Iran. We'll have to go through Syria. We'll have to go through Saudi Arabia to a degree. Without those three, it won't work. But Saudi Arabia is realizing that Iran is flexing its geopolitical clout in the Middle East. Because as of today, after the fiasco of Iraq, who's managing Iraq right now? It's Iran.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's just the way it is. So
how much did the U.S. waste in that 2 or 3 trillion?
That's what this said. The true numbers were about 6.4 trillion dollars. So the other thing you look at it is the conflict in Yemen.
What a tragedy.
Yeah, but the conflict in Yemen is a proxy war that are hidden between the rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Because no matter what you hear, I'm here to tell you based on knowledge. I'm here to tell you based on experience. And as I said, I was on the ground, so I know what I'm talking about. No matter what you hear, the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran will persist, no matter how you look at it. I wrote the books about it, so I kind of have an understanding of it. There are 4 elements just to share with our viewers for you guys to know, but I will be doing a video on this on the locals where I will detail more stuff. But I want to give you 4 points to understand what this rivalry is based on. 1 is religious or religion. 2nd, economics. 3rd, geopolitics. And 4th, ideology. Once again, 4 elements that define the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran: religion, economics, geopolitics, and ideology. So, and without going into, because if I want to explain each one, we need more than an hour to just explain.
An hour's the limit.
We can't do that. So that is at the core of, yes, the rapprochement is good. Yes, the reestablishment of relations is great, but also there is something in it for Saudi Arabia, why they're doing what they're doing. And another reason is that it has to do with, when you look at the country of Saudi Arabia and you look at the southeast of the country, the southeast of Saudi Arabia, we'll put a map for the Saudis in the description. I didn't get a chance to put it up first. The southeast, who resides there the most? The Shiites.
Ooh.
But that is not the issue. The issue is that part of the country, the southeast, is rich in oil, and the Shiites are not benefiting from the oil.
You talk about fermenting a bad situation into real violence.
Exactly. And this is where the fear of the Saudis, because Iran could mobilize the Shia and they can revolt against them. It's not going to happen, but the possibility is there. So this is where you see those dynamics. From the surface, it looks like, well, that's great. They are reestablishing diplomatic ties. But
the news behind the news is the tension is going to continue. And I think part of it also is all the sanctions that the United States has put out, forcing everyone's hand.
Yeah, well, especially for the Iran, because Iran gets used to it now. And this is where the fear that's emanating right now from those military exercises that Russia, Iran, and China are doing. The fear is not only about the military or the emergence of an alliance. The fear is about the US dollar being replaced as a global reserve. Because here's the thing, and I'll just say it straightforward, if that happens, we can turn into a poor country overnight.
Well, we certainly saw it in Great Britain. We've seen it.
Yeah, and this is where history comes in, because we don't learn much from history. Not all of us. I shall not generalize here, but the idea for you guys to understand that this is the fear of why this. I'm not surprised, because I wrote about it 5 years ago, that it's just a matter of time. Because the way I see it, with the emergence of this alliance, assuming they move forward, that's going to rival NATO. Because NATO is, who's in NATO anyway?
Right.
Who is in NATO? If you run for the U.S., I mean, Europeans couldn't manage themselves by themselves defensively.
Well, we certainly see them. The internal battles going on in Europe are hellacious.
Yeah, I had someone made a comment on my LinkedIn account that he said, "Well, you don't know Europe, you don't understand Europe." I answered back. I said, you did not like what I posted because it's the truth, and you have a hard time accepting it." And again, that's usually always the weak argument. If somebody comes up, I happen to know what I'm talking about. That's my background, academic and professional. So for somebody to just come out willy-nilly saying what he's saying, it's a weak argument. Anyway, I don't respond to this kind of stuff. So.
Well, each country in Europe has its own needs and its own wants. And if you're going to ask Germany to do sanctions or do something against Russia, they're going to freeze this winter. And it's cold in the winter in Germany, and the Russians just shut the gas off.
Exactly. And this is something that an average person, when he or she reads the headline thinking, oh, that's what it is. No. You need to understand the background story, and that's, I feel, at least my responsibility or our responsibility here is to provide that kind of clear analysis. Remember, guys, we only provide the analysis. You reach your own conclusions. I'm not going to reach a conclusion for you. So, but this is where the issue, just for you to understand the dynamics of this Iran, Saudi Arabia rapprochement, because a lot of people didn't see this coming. And usually that's how it happens. But the Saudis also fear being left out. It's because there's the question that has been, there are unemployment numbers going up, and there's the gap. The wealth gap in Saudi Arabia is widening. I was there on the ground. I saw, and I talked to the locals. The monarchy controls everything. Of course, that's the monarchy, whatever. Let alone now the policies of the new prince, the MBS, which, the guy is young. He doesn't understand the dynamics of global affairs, how things work. Because he was thinking that he can go with the military in Yemen and control that.
That didn't work so well.
No. Well, you think he will learn the lesson from the U.S. that went into Iraq? Because here's the funny thing. You know what's the funny thing? Is that Saudi Arabia, back in 2003, was telling America, do not go into Iraq. And yet committing or making the same mistake. Because that's part of where those dynamics are. And this is why we, the U.S., failed in Iraq, because we failed to understand the historical, the cultural, the social, the religious tensions that existed over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Thinking we're just going to go and fix the problem.
Well, how could American thinking actually evolve and be involved with 1,000 years when the best we can do is 250 or 275 years of history? As opposed to, I was walking on a sidewalk in Berlin. This was a long time ago. And I looked on, they had stones along the side that would build up about this high. And it said, about in 1045, built in 1045. All of a sudden you get this sense of history is real.
Yeah. And we don't tend to.
And the United States doesn't seem to have any sense of it at all.
Because we're a young country. 200 years, it's not much in comparison to. And this is why those dynamics in the Middle East, especially when it comes down to countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, and well established there for a while.
I mean, they've got 1,500 years of conflict.
That's true. That one started back in 661, if I'm not mistaken, when Ali was assassinated. It was the son-in-law at the time of Prophet Muhammad was assassinated. So assassination in the Middle East is part of the norm. It's part of the culture. It goes way back. So, even within Saudi Arabia itself.
Oh, yeah.
The assassinated King Faisal back in 1975. It was his nephew. Here is the surprising thing, just for you to know. I don't know if you know how, for example, MBS ascended to being crown prince, which means next in line for the throne. He wasn't supposed to be, because the way it works in the royal family, it's succession. You wait in line, you turn.
Yeah.
It was Mohammed bin Naif who's supposed to be. This MBS came behind him and stood in front of the line. That usually doesn't settle well within the royal family supporters. So I won't be surprised that one day we're gonna hear that that guy's been taken out.
Untimely demise.
Yeah, I won't be surprised because that's part of the history of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened to King Faisal in 75 because he took over from his brother. So his brother's son ended up killing him, King Faisal. So it's cultural, it's social, bloodline. There's a lot of entangled history there, and this is something we failed to understand our foreign policy because you hear those. The ones in Washington D.C. with the establishment thinking they are the heavy hitter in foreign policy, when in reality they have no clue. They have no clue because they are not presenting a pragmatic argument.
Right.
So, and this is what we're trying to do here, guys. So, when we provide you the analysis is to the best of our abilities, and again, it is based on not only knowledge but also facts. And in my case, because I was there on the ground. So I dealt with that stuff at close proximity. So that's usually why we are doing what we doing with this.
You know, I've talked to some very heavy hitters. I talked to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the Air Force,
Mhm.
and I did a 3-hour interview with him. And he convinced me that there are a lot of really smart people in Washington whose voices are not being listened to.
And that's true. That's true. There are some smart Americans out there. It just the bureaucracy, the way it works, the way it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But this is why we wanted to just provide you this because we're gonna move into your questions. But I want you just personally, I want you to put this within the context of not only the global affairs of today, but also put this rapprochement or reestablishment of diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia within the context of the religious aspect, economic, because both of them are members of the OPEC, geopolitics, and ideology. You know, and once you kind of read the history of both countries, if you want, read my 2 books. One of them about Saudi Arabia, one of them about Iran, and I detail. I mean, I go back literally some 3,000 years back, just to provide a timeline for the readers to have an understanding of it. So, but also just make sure you check out the videos on the locals.com because that's where we provide more details about it. So just to close this up here, the idea of this establishment, yes, it can work, but it's going to work on a minimum level. It's not going to be because the mistrust will always rule over the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
You mean 1,400 years of bad history is not going to be overcome in a week? Shocking.
You're absolutely correct, Ross.
Right.
And that's the reality of it. So let's go and answer some of your questions here because I do believe we do have a presentation for our members.
Yep.
Later on after this. So we're gonna do this, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. As always, guys, please make sure to put the question there so we know it is questions, so we won't waste time on that. Oh, Zulian, thank you so much for your super sticker. We truly, truly appreciate it. So,
And Elizabeth appreciates it too.
yeah, glad to have you back. Of course. Yeah, thank you so much.
Stefan, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Stefan. Well, see, it's one of those nice things to just link up again with our.
I think it's Beryakov.
Beryakov.
Okay.
The question.
You're gonna have to read it, David. I can't see it.
I can read it. As Syria is starting to settle down, and Russia and China backing also Arab states are starting to restore relations with Syria, what will happen to Turkey's possession in Syria's context? Great question, and indeed, you're absolutely correct in your statement or question. That is, yes, there are some Arab countries, as a matter of fact, the United Arab Emirates, if I'm not mistaken, already made the trip to Damascus. It's because they come into terms with the reality that The U.S. couldn't displace Assad from power, and it won't be easy. Once again, Syria is another country that Middle East politics goes through Damascus. So, and of course, with Syria now joining China's BRI, and also Russia being there, because Russia has a naval base in Tartus, which has access to the Mediterranean Sea. You can just see if you are one of those Arab countries, you're gonna be asking yourself, do I keep fighting them or do I join them? And that's why you're seeing now some Arab countries are changing their position regarding the refusal. For Turkey, exactly, something can be worked out behind the scenes. And I am sure. Why? Because Russia is going to get involved behind the scenes in ensuring that Turkey is okay with the new system moving forward, whatever. So that's what I anticipate happening. All right, Sash Knight, good to see you, Sash Knight. I enjoy your analysis on Sputnik, Professor. Yeah, thank you very much. Question: any news on increased Russian presence in East Africa? Not a lot. You still have the equivalency to us, the paramilitary over there, the maintaining certain aspects, because Russia has the presence of its naval base in Sudan. The issue that exists right now is in Mali. Why? Because the French, they have no say anymore. Because back then, it used to be France that controlled that part of Africa. That's why they are francophone, as we say. They speak French and all that stuff. Not anymore. So, but no, there is not a lot of increased presence there. They're maintaining the status of the numbers based on what I know so far as it was before. Because Russia's tensions now are focused on this Ukraine issue. That's usually where they are. All right, Lemon, good to see you. Question: how dependent is Saudi Arabia on the U.S. defense or the USA? He meant USA. Very. Their survival, I'll say it straightforward, and I disclose this in the book. Their survival of the monarchy depends on the U.S. security. And this is why all of you guys need to understand that the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the U.S., it's a relationship of convenience for both. U.S. gets oil. In return, Saudi Arabia gets security. So Saudi Arabia falls under the security umbrella of the U.S. But things are changing big time. They are changing right now. So with the expansion now of Iran's influence, with the increased footprints of China and Russia, and those are topics that I know a great deal about because I wrote extensively on. The dynamics are changing. U.S. decline in the Middle East is giving countries in the Middle East right now a pause to start to think, what's the next step? Because they're seeing the change coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Cheesecake. Good to see you. I'd like 99 years ago. I like that one, Cheesecake. Okay, question. Which U.S. ally or allies will give a loan to bail out the next crisis in the U.S.? I don't. Actually, none, because they won't be able to afford it. And this is why the mismanagement of the money here in the U.S. is big time. It's bad. It's so bad. Once again, talking openly here, they'll shut us down quickly. We're gonna be addressing those issues on locals. So that's why I can highly recommend for you guys, make sure to check us out on geopolitics.locals.com, because we're gonna be talking about those kind of issues. Yeah, I don't see any countries bailing out. And the fear that the United States has now, as I mentioned earlier, regarding the three countries, Russia, Iran, and China's emergence of alliance, not only from a military, but from financial. Because if they come to an agreement to have a system where they can conduct trade, the dollar, that's it. They can replace the dollar.
In our show this afternoon, we're going to lightly touch on that.
Exactly.
But lightly, because we got another agenda going.
Exactly. We're going to be talking about that one. All right, next question.
Ariel.
Good to see you, Ariel. Question: don't you think helium-3, for example, will bring next new geopolitical issues, even if we left oil and gas?
To review for our viewers what helium-3 is, it's a substance that's on the surface of the moon that is a wonderful, clean energy source. It can be mined easily, not cheaply, but easily, brought back to the world, brought back to the individual countries, and replace the power sources.
But it's going to be the competition over it.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of competition on it. But helium-3 could revolutionize life on the planet.
Wouldn't that be nice?
No pollution,
Yeah.
energy without end for 50,000 years. It's a long time.
Yeah. That's a possibility. And yes, it will create geopolitical issues, because the questions we need to ask is ahead of time is, how you're gonna define which area you're gonna mine for that on the moon, for example. Who gives the country the right to? Because if we are to say the moon belongs to everybody, well, whoever gets there, because hypothetically, if you go first and you say, well, I'm gonna mine here, and country B comes in and wants to move you out, you're looking at a war, and that's the geopolitical. Even the treaty that was signed in 1967 regarding the moon, that there will be no boundaries and no nuclear weapons will be deployed to the moon, might not be holding up forever.
Oh, good luck with people holding up their land on a treaty.
You're right. So that could become an issue, geopolitical. It's down the road, because processing helium-3 requires a lot of work based on what I read. So,
well, one of the hopeful sign of this is there's such an abundant supply of it that the competition for it might be less, because there's so much
of it. That would be great.
50,000 years of free energy, well, not free, but
yeah. Well, I won't be here to enjoy it.
I won't either.
And I wouldn't want to be here anyway. I like spend my time on Earth, whatever it's meant to be for, and move on.
I agree.
Yeah, because I don't want to overstay my welcome on Earth here. So, all right, next question. Tommy Putra. All right, question. Yemen recently lost internet access due to Saudi airstrikes. Will Saudi Arabia invade Yemen after the information blackout? No, they can't. Saudis know, they know they can't. I've been in Yemen. I was on the ground. Those guys, as nice as they are ferocious also. They can fight to death, and they don't fear. So, and Saudi Arabia will be making a big mistake. They already made a mistake when the prince said, I'm going to send military, thinking that just because you have U.S. weapons that you're going to, he found out that, it was clueless about understanding. You cannot defeat, the U.S. couldn't achieve that in Iraq. We couldn't achieve it in Afghanistan. What makes us think that the Saudis can do it in Yemen? They won't be able to, and they are not going to do that. Yes, they did conduct a strike. I read about it yesterday. The sad part about Yemen, and that's a very sensitive topic for me, it's because of the atrocities that's been committed there. I was there. I sat down. I used to sit down with the local on the ground and eat dinner with them. That's how kind they were to me. Because they look at me. They didn't look at the U.S. government. They look at me as a human being.
Yeah.
And same for me. Who am I to judge them just because they don't have running water? That makes them less than me. No, they're not. That was I spent few years back and forth in that part of the country, so I do understand it. The Saudis realized that, because here is the thing: what Yemen to Saudi Arabia is what Vietnam was to the U.S. That's what it is.
Predict a bad end.
Yeah. So, and Saudis will not be willing, because their ego, they will not be willing to sit down negotiation tables with the Houthis. The Houthis are supported by Iran.
Here we go.
It's the norm. Yeah. So they are not going to do that. I don't see that happening. All right. Brandon Bronx, good to see you. I hope I pronounced it correctly. What do you guys think geopolitically about Indonesia's government gotten approved by parliament to relocate the capital from Jakarta to Nusantara, the name of the new capital in Borneo Island. I am not aware of that yet. I did hear of some conversations going on in parliament in Indonesia, but I wasn't, and I'll say it, I wasn't sure it was about this topic. I thought it has to do with something else regarding trade, because there was some conversation inside Indonesia. They want to move forward, and they kind of like with all what's going on. But I did not know it was about this topic. So I don't know, and I'll be happy to look into that and will respond back to you. Arya, good to see you. Do you think Saudi will agree to cooperate with Iranians, or will they get closer to Israel? That is a good topic. Well, first of all, they're not going to get closer to Israel. They are already having relations with Israel. As a matter of fact, the former prime minister of Israel made a secret trip to Saudi Arabia. Nobody knew about. It's because the Saudi populations will not want an Israeli person stepping on the Saudi territory. So the cooperation between Iran and Saudi Arabia is going to be just on the surface. There are some major ideological differences between the two. There are also geopolitical aspirations for both. There are also religious inclinations as to why that is. Because Saudis won't want to lose the status of the leader in the Muslim world, even though most Muslim worlds don't care about the Saudis, because the double standards, and what the Saudis are saying, they're saying that just to incite or foment tension against Iran, they're saying that Iran's intention is to take over the Muslim world. That's nonsense. I'm here to tell you it is nonsense. And here is why. Statistically speaking, there are about 170 million Shiites around the world. Okay? There are about 1.6 billion Sunnis, Muslims. So how do you expect 170 million to control 1.6 billion? It just doesn't make any sense. Second thing, most of the Muslim world won't want it, won't allow it. So, but what the Saudis are doing is using this justification to create that fear into, Iran's going to dominate. Iran is not interested in that. And they can't do it anyway. So, so that is basically what, they're going to cooperate, but only from the surface. And the main cooperation I believe is going to be happening is in the OPEC, in the economy, because they are both producing countries. So. Abel Malcolm, good to see you, and thank you for your comments. Yesterday I responded to your comments, so thank you for your comments. So this question: will the next election, which election? The U.S., I'm assuming. Will the next election focus more on a foreign policy or more on domestic economic policies? If domestic, then nothing will really change in American foreign policy. So you're referring to American elections. You're absolutely correct. What do you think, Ross?
I think he is right on. I know that when I talk to people, I know what they're most interested in. It's inflation, it's decreasing quality of life, decreasing income, and the high cost of everything. So many items have gone up in the last few months, 20%.
Wow.
I mean, it's shocking how the prices are skyrocketing, and everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. So I don't foresee anything changes. And this is why I'm going to share this with you guys. We decided we're going to start doing, we don't know yet on which platform we're going to be doing this, but we're going to start taking every article of the Constitution and break it down for our viewers so they can have an understanding of what's going on. And here is why. I'll give you an example that is tied to this question. How the domestic policy or foreign policy is going to go. From a foreign policy, we can't change anything because we lack credibility. More and more, we are going backward rather than forward. And that stems from incohesiveness. When you have an incohesive foreign policy, a fragmented one, no vision, don't expect countries to just respond to you favorably. Okay? On the domestic front, there are much more issues that an average citizen now is waking up to, starting to realize, where this is going. And this is why we're gonna be doing this, taking articles and break it down to an average. And the example has to do with term limits.
What a great place to start.
Yeah, well, there are those who say, well, Congress will not do this. Yes, Congress cannot do this, but guess what? Article 5 of the US Constitution allowed the state by 2/3 to do that despite refusal from Congress. But most Americans do not understand what the Constitution says. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I don't foresee anything changing. It's going to be more bravado regarding foreign policy. And the domestic, they don't care much anyway. So thank you for your question. All right. Kaboom. Good to see you. How much influence in today's day and age do you think Washington's dual citizens have on not only U.S. foreign policy, but the global malfeasance that seems to be in a strong momentum? Good question. Well, if you are asking about, if I understood this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood your question is, what will individuals with the dual citizens be thinking in terms of loyalty to America or loyalty to their country? Thinking to favor U.S. foreign policy or their native country's foreign policy? If I understood this correctly, they won't have any influence on it whatsoever. Even Americans, born and raised here, won't have any.
We're going to address that in our presentation this afternoon. Big time.
That's why we're going to be talking about to our members about this, because it deals with democracy and so forth. So I don't foresee any change, no influence from the dual citizens on that. Thank you for your question. Okay, Shadow, good to see you. Wondered what your thoughts are regarding going talks between U.S. and Russia. Do you think it will result in any deal for the security concerns expressed by Russia? The answer is no, because here's the thing. I just tweeted this morning about this meeting that was cut short.
Yeah.
And usually you read the message right there, which means what? Basically, the West, as I said last time, and I remember saying this, Russ, remember when we talked and I said the West and NATO, they're going to be dragging the talks, because that's what's it.
It's exactly what you said.
Yeah, because if they were interested, if they, West, US, NATO, if they were interested, they would have responded to Russia's security proposal that Russia presented about a month ago. Till today, still didn't respond. So this Ukraine saga, it's going nowhere. And here's the question. If you happen to be a U.S. viewer, you need to ask yourself, what's in it for us in Ukraine? Yeah. What are we going to be putting our soldiers in risk? Why?
Another consideration here, and probably might even be the main consideration, is what does this dragging on of the conflict mean to the defense budget and the defense contractors who so much support the Congress?
Yeah, absolutely correct. And because if you have to think about the role of NATO in all this, well, NATO is irrelevant, as we always say. NATO's job ended when the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right.
30 years ago. So why the alliance is still? And we are paying for it.
Follow the money, who benefits?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see anything changing that. And the Russians not going to back down, because to them, if they do, they will lose face. So nothing's going to change. All right, question. Lex Neuron, good to see you. What do you think of the 3 U.S. aircraft carrier groups congregating at the South China Sea at this point in time when the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics is about to set off? Yes, I did hear about those ones. That's nothing but posturing. Is a show. What they're gonna do? It's just nothing. They're not gonna do anything. So, and the Olympics are proceeding. Here's the thing. Beside the 4 countries, US, Canada, Australia, and UK, other countries saying, no, we're not gonna boycott. Even though I just find out this morning that Holland and Denmark all of a sudden said, well, we're gonna boycott, but not boycott it just because of the so-called pandemic. They don't want to send their delegation. Nonsense. Because they didn't have the gut to come forward and say, we boycotting this or not boycotting. Look at the Poland.
Oh yeah.
Took stand. They took a stand and said, no, we're not going to boycott, and rightly so. And I'm going to do an analysis about this one as to why that is. In this case, you can send all the aircraft you want. So what? China is moving forward with it. It has no, it's just posturing, no more, no less.
Should we mention again the Pentagon report?
Sure.
How many iterations did it do? 17 or 19?
18.
I got it.
18.
18. And every time they did this mock-up war, the United States lost, and lost all their aircraft carriers quickly.
Exactly.
So this is pure posturing.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's usually how it is in international affairs. Joe, good to see you, Joe. By the way, Joe also put some very, very interesting questions. I thank you so much, Joe. So, question, Dave and Ross, how should be solve out the issue of Ukraine according to your thinking? That is.
Leave them alone. Get the U.S. out of the picture and let them work it out.
Okay, that's one way. If I am to say something is, I would say, hey, the Russians that exist within Ukraine, give them a choice to decide where they want. In Donbass, like what we're seeing, they want to be affiliated with Russia. So why are we interfering? And now that the Kremlin is going to be passing the bill for the Kremlin, the two other independent states, you can just see where it's going. I would say, leave them alone. Let Ukraine, by the way, is corrupted, very, very corrupted inside. That's beside the point, and it's not about pointing fingers. It's about they need to resolve their own domestic economic issues. Then NATO shouldn't be there. Why are we sending NATO troops closer to Russia's border? Back up. That doesn't mean we're scared of Russia. That is not the point. That's like, I always say, Russians coming over and conducting military exercises in Tijuana. They'll just cross the border. Are we going to like it? No, we won't. The same thing. So the best way, at least in my opinion, is NATO can sit down if they truly want to solve this and say to Russia, okay, we kind of see your point, security concerns. We're not going to. As a matter of fact, NATO doesn't want to accept Ukraine as a member.
Well, they don't qualify.
Despite what you hear. So that's the best way to do it, is retrieve, send the troops back, and let them handle their own. So.
Last question.
All right, last question, guys. Because
last question.
we're going to have to go prepare for the presentation. KR540, I am good to see you. Question, what is your opinion about the 1 year in office Biden speech?
We tried to do a deep dive linguistically and hypnotically into what he was doing. It was such a chaotic mess that we didn't even know where to start or stop. It was just such chaos.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, I disagreed with the content of it because we achieved such a great. No. Let's and this is again where the issue is with the how fragmented our. You can't just issue statements without backing that with substance. Those are just, as I always say, consumption of ink, no more, no less. Yeah, I wasn't satisfied with that. I wasn't happy about it. It just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So that's what I want to say. So, well, guys, we want to thank you so much for being with you, of course, for being with us, and us being with you, because we don't enjoy these Fridays conversations with you. Remember to check this geopolitics .locals. It's because literally we will be putting more videos there, as you know, because it's censorship free over there. So we're going to be doing that. For those who have not checked out our membership, check it out at geopoliticsinconflict.com. That's where we have the membership. We're gonna be adding more stuff for the members.
Or actually, we're adding a lot more
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, we're gonna be doing more for that.
Right.
So
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Russ.
We have big plans for our members. We want to make their contribution really worthwhile.
And indeed, so I mean, the whole idea of this local part, I still will do the break-ins with you guys. Well, it just we can talk 100%, and you all know this, but that doesn't mean we can provide you that brief analysis just to provide you a different perspective for you to think about. So, okay, so we look forward to seeing you next time, guys. Once again, thank you for your support. We appreciate the comments. I read them all. Ross reads them too when he get a chance. So we truly, truly appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And as always, stay informed. Until next time. Bye-bye.